Welcome to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I am your host and co-founder, Aaron Breitman. Thanks so much for joining me today, Tuesday, May 9th. And I wanted to start this podcast and really kind of focus on Rutgers women's basketball for this episode. Some recruiting news the past few days. I really kind of wanted to give kind of an update on the roster. As things are starting to really develop. And Coquese Washington, starting from the beginning, was hired last year in the kind of late in the offseason following the retirement of C. Vivian Stringer. Obviously a Hall of Famer, but also kind of difficult circumstances for Coquese to come in. And, I honestly thought she was taking a big risk going into last season with just 8 scholarship players. Just from an injury standpoint, things could have gotten derailed at any moment last season. And to her credit and to the team's credit, they kept battling throughout, and everyone survived and they got better. They got better. They went 12-20 overall, 5-13 in the Big Ten. But I was looking at the results from last season, and just in covering them last year. I remember that tournament, that Feast Week tournament. They played in, and they had Tennessee, South Dakota State, Texas, back to back to back, 3 days in a row. They lost by 40 points, 19 points, 38 points, 3 days in a row. That's rough for a team with just 8 scholarship players. I think just the culture alone, for them to keep fighting is a huge positive, just in terms of seeing how they grew as the year went on. I think it's a huge endorsement for Coquese Washington. Obviously, she has a very good coaching staff as well. Nikki McRae Penson, Tasha Pointer, two in particular that have, obviously Pointer has long Rutgers ties. But Pearson, Nikki McRae, Pearson had not only a great WNBA career, but coaching career as well coming into Rutgers. So really strong staff. And also, I didn't want to not mention John Hampton, who is a little bit younger but up and coming. And I think that staff as a whole, along with Coquese, is really strong. And to see that team make progress the way they did, I mean, you're talking also later in the season. They went to Iowa, who made the national championship, just fell short. Caitlin Clark. Lost by 54 points, gave up 111, lost by 54, come home, beat Northwestern. So it was those kinds of moments for me, especially, we went through this with Steve Peichel. There's little things you're looking for in those first few years when you're rebuilding such a, monumental task. And she really did have to start from scratch. So to see those kind of moments last season, they had a big win at home against Nebraska. And I'm just looking at the schedule here. Yeah, they beat Nebraska. They won 2 in a row, Nebraska and then at Minnesota. That was definitely a moment where you're like, okay, this team's getting better. This team's getting better. And Kayleen Smeichel ended up being one of the best freshmen in the Big Ten last year. Huge numbers. 17.9 points, 4.5 rebounds. She averages 2.5 steals, almost 2 assists per game. She shot 40% from the floor overall, but 36% from 3 on 155 attempts, 79% from the line. She was dominant. She was a dominant scorer. She made, I thought she should have been Big Ten Freshman of the Year. She wasn't. She made all freshman team. She also made all second team overall. But she's a huge piece to work from. So to have a true freshman like that in your first year as a rebuild, huge development. And then China Cornwall, who's been with the program a long time, really developed as well under Washington. 9.5 points, 8.6 rebounds. She was a double-double machine. She averaged almost a block a game. She shot 51% from the floor. She was a huge presence inside. She was a better defender. So she's going to be back. So both of them, Smeichel and Cornwall, are back. Also got confirmation that Awa Sidibe is back for one more year. She ran the points, 9.3 points, 5.2 rebounds, a little over 3 assists a game. She also had almost 2 assists a game. Definitely turnovers were an issue last year for the team as a whole. But, she's really athletic. She's back. 6 of the 8 scholarship players from last year are back. Yeah, Cassandra Brown, the transfer from St. Peter's, she was real solid last year. 8.1 points, 5.2 rebounds. She shot 46% from the floor, 81% from the free throw line. So she's back. Uh, Erica Lafayette, who's also came in with Cornwall, she was a key player off the bench, 5.7, 2.5, averaged also almost 2 assists a game. She could defend on the wing and on the perimeter. So she's back, gives you some versatility there. And then also you have Antonia Bates, who was a true freshman, and she really was a good defender. Offensively, wasn't able to do much, but I think she's a player that could develop under this staff and really end up being a very, very good player for this team. So you have Smichael, Cornwall, Sidibe, Brown, Lafayette, and Bates back. Then you added Jillian Howard midway last year. Her brother Kevin is one of the best shooters in the NBA, started at Maryland. She's a shooter as well. She's going to have to physically develop. That's why they got her in so early. I think that was huge. So we'll see what she can do coming into this year. That's 7 on the roster. And then the transfer portal, 2 huge additions in the last 2.5 weeks. Destiny Adams, former McDonald's All-American, former Gatorade Player of the Year for New Jersey, started Manchester Township, averaged 30 points in high school. Played at North Carolina the last 2 years. Was a key rotational player for them. Really was a big defender for them. Offensively, didn't do a ton. Wasn't asked to do a ton, but she could score inside. She's super athletic. She could play multiple positions. She could defend multiple positions. She's definitely hasn't reached her potential at the collegiate level yet, and she's going to play a big role for Rutgers, obviously. And then you have Maya Petticourt, point guard. Was a 4-star in high school, top 100 recruit. Adams was a 5-star. Petticourt played 1 year at Texas A&M. She didn't play a ton for a new coach, but she played in the Big 12. I mean, she actually had a really good game against South Carolina, which is defending national champs at the time. They made the Final Four, obviously. So she's got some big game experience already. So both of those transfers coming in, that's 9 scholarship players on the roster so far. Obviously, they need to add at least 2 more, but to add those 2 really talented pieces that are looking to fulfill their potential, along with your core back from last season, culture-wise, it's really important and really encouraging. And then on top of all that, Zakara Perkins, 4-star, committed this past weekend from Texas. She was an all-state player. And her mother, Demaya Walker, was a 12-year WNBA player, and I didn't want to get her last name wrong. Demaya Walker, and now Wheatfall. She had a great career at Virginia. She was an All-American at Coquese Valley in New Jersey. So there's New Jersey ties there. I'm sure the WNBA. I mean, they didn't all cross paths in terms of playing with each other, but I'm sure they, Coquese and McRae know Demaya Walker. I'm not saying that's why they got her, but that relationship, that credibility, that's huge. Relationships are everything in recruiting. So, watching Perkins on film, I mean, she has a motor. She's really aggressive. She plays really hard. She could score in multiple ways. She's a defender. She could defend the perimeter. She's a rebounder. She could do it all. And I think she's a huge addition for this program. Again, class of 24, won't be on the team next year. But bit by bit, Coquese Washington is adding really talented players to the program. It was a little quiet there that first month in the off season after this past season. It was fair to be a little nervous after, only having 8 scholarship players coming into this past season. But again, what that team was able to do, again, 12-20, 5-13, not the goal, not what you want. But first year circumstances being, pretty clear in terms of getting a late start, kind of starting from scratch with a roster. It really is. I think we'll look back on it and say that first year was huge in terms of developing the foundation, but also the small accomplishments they made along the way. And now, boom, you have 6 of the 8 back. really all your key players from last year. Kai Carter did have, was solid off the bench, and Abby Streeter was a shooter. Abby Streeter's graduated. Kai Carter transferred. I do think they need to add at least another shooter. I think they need to add someone else inside. You need to get two more, I think, at least. Maybe they're not going to fill out the whole roster at 13. That's four more players, but you got to get two. I think you definitely need to get a shooter. 3-point shooter that they need to add to that mix. But it's, really intriguing roster right now, I think. And it's great to see. It's great to see. I've had Coquese Washington on the podcast twice now. She's super enthusiastic. She had a lot of success at Penn State before things kind of, slowed down for her there. She was at Notre Dame as an assistant. She's got a real pedigree, both as a player and as a coach. And her reputation is really, I think, starting to show just in terms of how she's developing the team, but also the players she's bringing in now methodically. She didn't panic last year. She didn't add players just to add players to the roster. She knew what she was comfortable with. She got the most out of those 8 players. And now she's adding some big time talent that hasn't been fully developed at the collegiate level. It's exciting. If you like hoops, if you like women's basketball, if you're proud of Rutgers women's basketball history, uh, this is a real positive sign. There's a lot to like about this program, and I think the last few weeks has been really indicative of where things are going. So wanted to really cover that. A couple more things wanted to mention. Megan Ball named Big Ten Defender of the Year for women's lacrosse on Monday. She's, had a tremendous career at Rutgers. Obviously, they were one game short. I talked about it on Monday, one game short of making the NCAA tournament. But she had a tremendous year. Last year, teammate Cassidy Spillis was named Midfielder of the Year. This year, Megan Ball wins Big Ten Defender of the Year. So that's huge. And then congratulations to her. And then baseball, which we touched on as well. Christian Coppola, dominant start again this weekend. True freshman. Steve Owens showing that he can adjust mid-year by switching up the rotation, moving Coppola to that Friday starter, that ace role. And he's been dominant in 3 of his last 4 starts. He struck out 13 against Penn State. They swept Penn State this past weekend. Struck out 13, gave up 1 run in 7 innings. He leads the league now in 13 strikeouts in a performance. It's now the second time in the last 4 starts he's gone 7+ with 12+ strikeouts. He's the only pitcher to do that in the Big Ten. That's phenomenal. And it's right after Owens promoted him. So it's great to see, again, with all these programs, it's about bringing in talent, establishing depth, developing that talent. And that's how Rutgers programs are going to succeed. They're not going to just bring in 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. They're going to bring in, talented players, but that are coached, developed, and able to get better. And Steve Owens he's a great coach. He really is. He just celebrated that milestone this past year. He just got his 100th win with Rutgers. Just got 1,000 wins in his coaching career. And congratulations to Christian Coppola, Big Ten Freshman of the Week. So a couple accolades there sprinkled in on top of Rutgers women's basketball. Wanted to go through that. They did announce Destiny Adams officially on Monday. And I, thought with that and then Perkins committing, there's a lot of positive news. Petticourt, will be announced soon enough. And, they're going to have to add a couple more players, but that roster is really taking shape in terms of being able to make a leap forward next year in the Big Ten. We'll see what their schedule ends up being, but definitely exciting times for Rutgers women's basketball and more to come. So check out all my coverage at thescarletfaithful.com. Have a few football articles. I'll have some men's basketball. We're on Portal Watch. It's Tuesday. The portal closes on Thursday. Talked about on Monday, Mawat Mag. The rumors does appear that things, knock on wood, is looking better in terms of him wanting to stay. And again, not going to speculate what the reasons are. Remember, these are college kids. Ideas, recruiting is not it's a complicated business, and with the transfer portal, with NIL, anything's possible. So if Rutgers is able to retain Mawat Mag, obviously huge. So a little bit on the edge of our seats the rest of the week. And hopefully we can, have a little bit of a celebration on our Friday podcast. So we'll see what happens. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Find all my coverage at thescarletfaithful.com. Hope you like this new daily edition. We'll have some guests coming up soon as well. And have a great day.